very much for coming in. I'm going to sign the sheet around somewhere because everyone's enjoying their summer. And we're going to go ahead and take it off. Take it online. So, as she said, my name is Lynda Fote. I will just tell you a little bit about my own teaching experience, see if I can build a little credibility before we get started this morning. I was actually going to be an American history teacher. That was my original career goal. And I graduated from Montclair State long enough ago. If you couldn't find a job teaching or you were certified to teach, you could get a provisional certificate to teach absolutely anything. I find this whole highly qualified stuff really easy because I took a job teaching fourth grade, and honestly, I didn't have a clue. Right? I walked in the first week and there was a phonics workbook on my desk. I thought I was going to have a chord. So on the job training at its very best, and that's my first fourth grade class. Welcome back to them in a minute, okay? And that very young person on the corner is me. I did that for a couple of years while I got my elementary certification at Trenton State, and then I went back to school to the University of Oregon and got my master's in special ed. Okay, 1970-71, so just the beginnings of the boom in special ed here in New Jersey and around the country. When I came back to New Jersey, I took a job in New Brunswick teaching in a school where all the students were classified emotionally disturbed, because that's the language we used in 1970. Okay, back when special ed was someplace else. So there were 9 classes housed in the Sunday school building downtown, but they very nicely rented for us because the truth was they never actually wanted 6. Because that's pretty much how special ed operated. You're a kid with special needs, you will go somewhere, as though something magical was going to happen when you got there. And I taught primarily grades 6, 7, 8, and 9. That is very much a young person's job, right? I did that for a number of years, and I moved to Long Island briefly while my husband was a student at Hofstra. The first year I taught, Hofstra, good. I've been in Hofstra for a long time. I taught a self-contained class for 6- and 7-year-olds, so little guys with learning disabilities, and then I opened the district's first resource center in the pull-out reading language arts grades K to 6. And then we moved to Toms River, and those of you who may be familiar with the Toms River area know that we are one of the largest suburban districts in the state. We're hovering somewhere in the neighborhood of 18,000 kids. We have 3 high schools, 3 middle schools, 11 elementary schools, and a preschool handicap program that is big enough for the entire state of New Jersey. All right? I was a learning consultant for child study in Toms River for 18 years. I always worked at one of our high schools, and sometimes I had an elementary school as well. And I started doing a lot of staff development around the early days of moving kids with special needs into general ed classes. Early 90s, when we first started not sending those kids who knows where, all right? And I discovered I like doing staff development a whole lot more than I like staying in my office, writing IEPs, and having people mad at me, right? you joke, all right? That was pretty much how I described my job. So this is a very big number. 22 years ago, I took what I keep telling people was an early retirement, and this has been my full-time job for that time period. And I've had the great pleasure of working in districts all over the state of New Jersey on a whole variety of topics. And boy, have I learned a lot, okay? Because I get to meet a lot of really good teachers, and I steal every good idea I can get my hands on, all right? And so we're going to share some of that over the course of our 3 days together. So just as a way to get started, this is my first 4th grade class. 1968. I had this vision the other day that means I've had a 50-year career. That's pretty terrifying. But it also means that some of these 4th graders are getting ready to retire. Okay? Now, this may not look much like your 4th grade classes these days. Not as much diversity as we see in our schools these days. I taught in a small rural community where I grew up, all right? But I will tell you that this group of 30 kids is every bit as diverse in terms of being learners as any classroom you've got right now, right? This young man, right here, his name is Paul. Second week of school, he said, Miss Russell, that was my name in those days, you know why this ear is longer than this ear? I said, no, Paul, dear, why is this ear longer than this ear? Because in kindergarten, his black and kept pulling on it. All right? Paul could have been the ADHD poster boy, and somehow he missed phonics. I don't know where he was, on what planet he was residing when that was the lesson, but he missed that. Perfectly capable young man in terms of intellect, but he would read where he went. All right? He is sitting next to Jonathan, who in about the same time period told me that he and his mother were reading Shakespeare. Now, I have no idea exactly how much Shakespeare Jonathan understood, but he could read anything you put in front of him. Okay? That's one group of 4th graders. And that's what your classes look like. All right? If we start to talk about the diversity in our class,
classrooms, my arms are literally not long enough to represent the range of kids that you have. And if you took every kid with an IEP out of your class, the range would still look like that. It's the nature of who we teach and what we teach, okay? And so over the course of these 3 days together, we're going to talk about differentiated instruction. But here's the truth. It doesn't matter whether you call it differentiated instruction, or universal design for learning, or classroom instruction that works, or research-based best practice. You know, it's all about who do you teach, and matching the way you deliver instruction to the kids who actually fill up the seats in your classroom. This is not a workshop about curriculum. The curriculum is there. We've all got it. Sometimes we go back and we tinker with it. But the curriculum is there. We're talking about the kids, all right? We're talking about how we can take that curriculum and make it come alive for every kid in the class. To give every kid a chance to make the maximum amount of progress that he or she is capable of. And I just ended the sentence with a preposition, which is not very good, but okay? So that's where we go. Now, here's how the 3 days work. We're going to work really hard, and by 12:30 you will be in the parking lot. Because I live in Tom's River, all right? And it's a long ride, okay? We will definitely take a break at some point during the morning. You usually get a break when I need a break, all right? But if your break schedule and mine do not coincide, please just get up and take a break. I am reasonably hard to insult, so that's not a problem. There are cookies over there. That's because I find it uncivil to be in a room with this many people for 4 hours and not have at least a cookie in the room, all right? And plus, if it's hot and you get dehydrated, cookies are somehow really good for you. So please help yourselves when you want them. I'm going to make certificates for every day, so at some point I'm going to make copies of today's and we will set them out for you. So every day pick up one. I know you sign it, but then you have a record of your presence here, okay? Some of the things we're going to do together will look like something you might actually do in your classroom. Some of the things we're going to do together will not look like things you're going to do in your classroom, because I'm going to challenge you to work outside of your own classroom level so you can feel what differentiated instruction looks like as a student. So we're going to go back and forth between those two things. Some things that look familiar, curriculum-wise, some things not so much, okay? And I encourage you to ask questions, share ideas with one another. There's a lot of teaching experience in this room, okay? Thinking that I know the answers to all the questions you will ask is really pretty foolish, all right? But somebody else in this room may have a great idea to share, okay? So please feel that you should do that in the course of the time, all right? Everybody good? Okay, so you're also going to discover that I'm not exactly a technology, so this always stays in there. Okay, so we are going to start with something called Give One, Get One. And everyone should have picked up a sheet that says Give One, Get One off the table. If anyone who does not have one, please go grab one for yourself right now. Okay? So, if you are seated at a table with 2 people, and 2 of you are going to work together. If you are seated at a table with 3 people, then 3 of you are going to work together. If you are seated at a table with 4 people, please divide yourself into 2 pairs. All right, so it's not all 4 of you, it's 2 and 2. All right, everybody got the idea? At the top, where it says 10 things I know about, please write differentiated instruction. Or DI, if that makes you happy. This is not a test. There are 2 columns on this paper. If I do this with my students, I generally have them folded so all they see is the Give One column. Because if I let them keep the whole paper open, Lord knows what column they write in. All right? You're grown-ups, you do what works for you. But we're only going to write in the Give One column. Okay? You and your partners are going to come up with 5 things you know about differentiating instruction that the 2 of you can agree on. So that when you've got your 5, your paper will look exactly like your paper. But you're going to do it quietly enough that these 2 over here will not be stealing your good ideas. Okay? Because each pair will come up with their own 5. Does everybody understand what you're going to do? Do not make this harder than it's supposed to be. All right? Just whatever 5 things pop into your heads that you know about differentiating instruction. Any questions? All right, put your heads together. Come up with 5. Go. If you don't have 5, that's okay. they don't have yet, and you're going to get a new one from them that you don't have on your list. So it works like this. Hi, I'm Lynda. Okay, Sarah, can I give you, it requires many resources. Do you have that on your paper? You don't. In this case, she says, thank you very much, and she writes that in her Get One column. Okay? And she offers me one. Ah, yes, it's really not, doesn't work well if the kids are running all over the place. So, essential help, I don't have that. But what if I already have something like that and say, no, I'm sorry I have it, can you give me another one? And we keep going until I give her one that she doesn't have, and she gives me one that I don't have. Hence the title of the activity, give one, get one. Everybody understand so far? Okay, now clearly, when I tell you to get up, you don't need to talk to him. Because he has the same thing on his paper that you do. So you're going to have to talk to other people around the room. I have the kids introduce themselves to each other and shake hands because I think it's an approximation of like appropriate adult behavior. If you have a class where having them shake hands would freak everybody out, don't do that. All right, it's not a necessity, but I ask the kids to do that when they're out sharing. Okay, so the minute you have 5, you become a resident expert. Resident experts line up over here. If you still need one, just walk up and ask an expert, because experts like to be helpful. All right? Everybody understand what you're going to do? Okay, all you need in your hand is your paper and something to write with. Everybody get up and go. Create some sense of order out of the chaos I've created in my room because I let them all out of their seats. All right? You'll discover in the course of our 3 days together that I have a pretty high tolerance for buzz and hubbub in the room, but we need some way to pull that back together. And so lining up as experts is certainly a way to do that. It's also really nice for a kid who never gets to be the expert at anything to have filled up their paper and be standing here and have some kid who thinks they know everything, but still has an empty box on his paper, come over and ask them. You know, so it also helps build that confidence in kids. One of the most important things to make this work is who is your initial partner. It is probably not a good idea for me to put 2 kids who are totally clueless about the topic at the top together to create their Give One column. So this is a time I can mix them up a little bit, okay? Take the skill levels and just not pull them all in the same spot. Here's another possibility. I've got a kid in my class who routinely doesn't have things to write in the Give One column. And I say, tomorrow we're going to write down 5 things we know about volcanoes. Take this index card home, go on your computer and look up some things about volcanoes. Or if I don't think that'll work, I just write down 3 things they could know about volcanoes, give them the card and say, go home. Tomorrow, you know, they need to know something to get started. Yes or no? Everybody? So you can tinker with this a little bit to pull in those kids who, we know that. One of the biggest issues for us are the kids who come with very little background knowledge or very little vocabulary about different topics. So sometimes we need to just give them something to know. Right? So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go back to your original partner, and you're going to share what's in your Get One column. Because although each of you collected 5, you may have not collected the same 5. So you will have other things to share with one another. And then I want you to find something on your list. It could be in your original Give One column or in the Get One column. I don't care where you're looking for it. But something you and your partner think is interesting enough to share with the whole group. So we'll come back and everybody will get a chance to share one. You all understand what you're going to do? In that case, back with your partners. I have extra copies of this if anybody wants a blank. Please do. Okay, so does every partnership have one to share, or do you need more time? Okay, another 30 seconds. Pick out one to share with the group. It's not just about academics. Absolutely, okay? We're certainly going to talk about a lot of academics here, but we also have to differentiate the kids who come with different levels of social skills, different behaviors, different levels of motivation. You know, kids are not just little robots that we input information into. So, absolutely. Somebody else. Yes.
And it's important for the parents to understand.
Yes. That's a big deal. Right? You will get questions. Right? Some of them very positive. My kid's been struggling and you gave him something which is right, but it's really good. Sometimes, how come we're asking my brilliant student to do this, you know, because he might not get an A on this. You know, like some people have a hard time with us raising the bar for kids who are really able because they're used to them just getting an A. Sometimes people want to know why their kid didn't get a chance to do that. You know, like you really need to have a comfort level with the decisions that you make because parents will ask questions. Most of them, when their kids are doing well and they're happy in school, are fine. All right? But any particular parent question anybody wants to throw out on the table for us? They pop into your head in the course of the 3 days. Please ask me, because I do think that's a big deal. Okay? Somebody else. What do you want to share?
All right, I'll share. You can differentiate by the process, like the student's process, their learning modalities, like their cassette learner, or if they need to move, which kind of like leads into the different kind of product that they give you.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about those pieces of DI, which are probably the things we're going to talk about that are most familiar to everybody here, because that's kind of the language we use. But yeah, this is not just about differentiating the level of work. It's also differentiating about the way kids work as well. Okay, so thank you. Somebody else? Yes, right here.
Not just for struggling learners.
It is not just for struggling learners. I come from special education. It's not just about the kids who struggle. If we don't figure out that for Jonathan who was reading Shakespeare, then we've really missed the boat. Okay? We also need to think about that kid who is hovering in the middle. When I work with teachers during the school year, we often have a break in between and they go back and do a lesson and then they come back and share. That's the one thing we don't. It's nice in the summer because you don't have the bell ringing and all of that. But what we miss is the chance to go back and try something out with the kids and then come back. And I often ask teachers to pick 3 kids in their class. A kid who struggles, a kid who's exceeding expectations on a regular basis, and a kid who's kind of chugging along in the middle. And it's always that kid who's just kind of chugging along in the middle that we know the least about. And I'm not saying that to be critical. I had 30 kids in that class. It took me till December to know all their names. You know, this is not easy, but it is always that kid. They're not giving you a hard time. They're doing the work. They're doing okay. That we know the least. The high-end learners make themselves known to us quickly. I'm bored. I'm done. What do I do now? The kids who struggle make themselves known to us quickly. I can't, I won't, I tore up my paper, I'm falling off my, you know, like whatever avoidance strategy they have learned because the work is really a huge challenge for them. It's that other kid, and I do think we owe it to them too. You know, we owe it to take a bit, because some of those kids could be more able. Some of those kids could be higher end learners. We just haven't seen that anymore. Okay? Somebody else. What else on the list? Yeah.
We had a lesson before the day.
Yep. And sometimes it's the thing you plan for. You have this great lesson plan, I differentiated the heck out of it. And sometimes it's the kid where you're like 2 minutes into something and you know that this just ain't work, you know, that you do on the fly. That's what good teachers do. We fix it. Okay? Anything else? Somebody has on the list, yes. Yes. There is the goal for the whole class. There is the goal for groups of kids within this class. And sometimes there are goals for specific individuals within this class. And that's the balancing act, right? How do we kind of keep all of those things in the air at once? I'm a huge fan, even with the younger ones, of teaching kids how to set goals for themselves. That's really hard to do. But if there's one thing that I think will help to make our differentiation more appropriate. It's having the kids give us that, like, I'm ready for something new, this is too much of a challenge for me right now. Like to talk more about themselves as learners and to do more goal setting. In the beginning, some of them are just awful at it. I've always experienced that. They're just awful at it. They either set goals for themselves that are out there somewhere, which, that's really good, but we need a goal for tomorrow. Or they're so scared they set goals for themselves that are such minute, like they're all over the place in terms of goal setting. But I do think that that's really one of the keys for us as teachers. As hard as that work is, I think it's really important. Anybody else, something to share? Okay, so let's talk about Give One, Get One. I am a fan of games with kids, all right? Anything you call a game is clearly more motivating than something you call a worksheet. It's just that simple. I could use this before we start a new topic to see what the knowledge level, just kind of a baseline in the group. I could use this midway from a unit of study to see where kids are now. What are 5 things you've learned about? I could use it towards the end of the unit of study. What are 5 things you think you need to know when we take the quiz tomorrow? Write 5 really good questions you think are going to be on the test. What you put at the top here could be just about anything to open the door for kids to tell you what they know. This is an open-ended question. This is not, what's the capital of New Jersey trend? This is, what do you know about? Okay? I made a mistake one day with a group of high school math teachers asking them to make different ways to make 10, and then I didn't understand anything they put on the paper. It's all about what question do you ask. And this certainly works for basic content. It works in science and social studies. It particularly works for like new vocabulary or important facts about something. It also works in math. Think about different math questions you could ask if the kids could have to do this. I gave you 5. With younger kids, 2 might be enough. We could make as many as 10. It really depends on the content and what you think is appropriate for the kids. So take a minute, talk with the folks with who you are seated, and jot some ideas down for yourself, because it's August. School will open and you'll say, oh, what was that thing we learned how to do in the workshop that I thought was a really good idea? So take a few notes so you will have that to jog your memory later. Okay, so let's share a few of these, because you teach different grade levels, but sometimes the idea from a teacher in one grade level will spark one for somebody in another. So where do you think this would work for you? Think about your kids. Is it going to work? Yes.
For both 6th grade math, so
Right.
you could use it for like math strategies, like 5 things you know about solving a word problem.
Sure.
So kids are also sharing strategies that they're using in the learning classroom is something that works for them.
Absolutely. Any kind of an open-ended math question like that, or anything that you could show in multiple ways. Okay? Yep. Okay? Yes.
What about character traits?
Sure. Now you need to make sure, if you're using this particular one, that there's that many. You may want to have 3 and 3, because after they run out of the good ones, they write any old thing. Okay? So think about what the ultimate number might be, and then make the sheet be smaller than that. Okay? Somebody else? Yeah.
You said users of breaks, we're going to 80-minute periods for science and social studies with break, like in the middle.
Yeah.
Optimism.
Really good. Most kids cannot sit for 80 minutes attentively. Some of them can keep their butts in the chair that long, but they can't actually keep tuned in for that long. So something in the middle to get them up moving around. This has a structure. We come back, we list the things that were on the paper. You can write them in your notebook. There's a way to transition this back to whatever the topic is. Sure, that would be a good tool. Anybody else? I find it really important to think of something to share with the whole group and come back as a group. I think that gives me, as much as I'm trying to jog from group to group to see what everybody wrote down, there's just no way I can see what's on every single paper. So this gives us a chance to kind of take the big picture and maybe list the character traits that we decided to share. So now we've got a few, like come up with the ideas that we thought were the best, just as a way to pull us back together and give you a picture of the whole group. All right? So give one, get one. So I will leave these out when we take a break later if you want one. Honest to goodness, this is just insert table, that is my computer still over here. All right? But you can make it with as many or as few as you need. Any questions about this? Okay, so let's go back and talk a little bit about differentiating instruction. Because this is my job, I pretty much read every book that says differentiating instruction in the title. And sometimes I'm in chapter 3 before they've actually gotten around to defining it, to really telling us what they mean. And so I'm going to give you my sense of what makes differentiated instruction. And so the first thing I'm going to talk about is not a statement, but a question. And the question to me that drives differentiated instruction is how do we balance success and challenge? How do we make sure every kid in our classroom has an opportunity to meet with success, but at the same time there's enough challenge that everybody is moving forward? And despite my lack of techie skills, that was reasonably easy for me to type into the PowerPoint and get up on the screen. I think this is the hardest work that a teacher will ever do. I don't think any of you get enough credit for all the thought that goes into this. And on any given day, you may get it just right. Perfect balance for each kid in the class. But the truth is, there are days when you get in the car to go home and know there's a kid you missed. Either because there wasn't enough support there for that kid and they were really floundering in this lesson. Or they were done by the time you'd given the directions and you weren't quite sure what to do. More work is not the answer for kids who are really high-end learners. It's more challenging work. It doesn't need to be any longer. They don't have to work any harder. They just have to have something that's at an appropriate level for them. So I'm not sure anybody quite knows how hard it is to answer that question. What's important to me is not that you get it right every day, but that you ask the question every day. That you continue to go back and look at what's going on in your room and ask yourself that. Did we balance success and challenge? Who was it right for? Who needed a little more? A little less. Okay? But there are a couple of other things I want you to think about. Spend a little time talking about that. For me, differentiated instruction is about putting the kid at the center of the conversation. When I work with teachers at the elementary school level, this is not a hard discussion to have. I do because I spent many years in Thompson at the high school level, spent a lot of time with high school teachers who are wonderful, who teach AP Chem and calculus, like they teach things I don't understand. But it's a little harder to wean them away from the curriculum guide and make them think about the kids. Because that's not what they necessarily feel like they're training with. It's just a different mindset at that level. For you, that's not that hard a conversation to have. It's about putting the kids front and center. And I wanted to sway us, and I saw something on somebody's paper that taps into this. I worked in a district for a while where at the end of every lesson, there needed to be 3 different levels of tasks for kids to do. And I said, why? Because sometimes one task is good for everybody. It's open-ended enough. We might do a little small group instruction. We've got one task, and within that task, there's room for everybody to be successful. Sometimes 3 levels isn't enough. This is not about doing different for the sake of doing something different. It's about doing something different because it's appropriate for this group of kids, for this individual kid. And so I'm not sure maybe we should start calling it appropriate instruction instead of differentiated instruction. I think some places get caught up in but it needs to be different. The question is always, why? And if it needs to be different, then that's what you need to do. But I'm not sure that's always the answer. Does that make sense to all of you? Okay. So here's what I want you to do. Take a minute. Talk to the folks with whom you are seated. The 3 different things I gave you to think about in terms of just for the sake of different? Does that match what you already thought when you walked in here today? Does that challenge you to think a little differently? You know, just take a minute and talk to somebody about this. Okay, everybody back together. Anything come up in your conversation that we should talk about as a group? Kind of raise for all of us the discussion we were having over here.
So we were saying that last point about it being different versus appropriate. We feel like that's somewhere that we need to continue to have these conversations because a lot of times we feel like when administration is looking, they are looking for something that's overtly different. We feel like the culture is changing a little bit, but we also are talking about, eventually through this type of work, changing the vocabulary, that's what Lynda was saying, so that it is more of a focus on the appropriate as opposed to the different. And that's sort of like a little, something that kind of makes sense to us, it resonated with us, but we had never thought of it in those terms. It's like, wow, okay, that makes sense.
I'm saying that I'm in some districts enough where I go in classrooms to observe teachers. And like, this is my job, I'm pretty good at seeing differentiation. But sometimes what I can't see is what's in your head. What did you think before you made this decision? Sometimes I'm in a classroom where I see something that looks pretty traditional, but it's thoughtful. Okay? It's a decision that this way of delivering the content is going to be best for this group of students. It's not today's Thursday, day 23 in the curriculum, and I'm on page 45. It's not that, okay? It's, I need to model for this group of kids because they need that feedback. It's about the decision making, and you owe it to your administrators who come in your classroom to be able to articulate that for them. Because they are not mind readers, okay? They don't know all the stuff you thought about before anything actually happened in your room. And so I learned, here's my favorite question. If I've been observing a group of some teachers and we sit down to talk later, I say, what did you learn about the kids today that will have some impact on your planning tomorrow? And a teacher who can answer that is good at their job. It matters to me less how perfect today's lesson was. Some days they're really wow, and some days it's okay. It's not about the perfection. It's about that every day gives you another opportunity to learn more so that the next day is even better. And so when you can articulate that, I saw 2 kids in the class today who just weren't quite with us. I need to go back and look at their work and figure out what to do tomorrow. It's as simple as that. It's about being a really good observer and constantly reflecting on what's going on in the classroom. And that, at least from my perspective, that's more important than everybody got a 10 out of 10 on the quiz at the end of today's lesson. Yippee. It's about what did we learn. Does that kind of, okay. Yes?
I think it's a great point too. I was going to say real quick. That conversation piece to me is huge. Because I'll tell you, I know at our administrative level, we constantly have conversations about classroom visits, whether it's a walkthrough or an actual observation. One where we literally just want to come in because we want to come in because we enjoy doing that. But then, where does that conversation go? Because we've been teachers, and I know that feeling of like, oh my gosh, this lesson I did earlier today was so phenomenal. And the kids
Why weren't you there for that?
But you came in at 2:15 and it just wasn't there. Or yesterday's lesson was awesome, but they popped in for 5 minutes today and things just weren't going as well. And then you have that immediate, I wish they would have seen this part of it. Like, that's really hard as a teacher. So I think that conversation piece really is important. And the more times that you're in the rooms, you get more of a feel, because sometimes the things are just off. And the leveling piece, I was sharing with them, so when I taught third grade, I would get so frustrated because we had our reading series, and it was like, okay, here are the low kids, medium kids, high kids, because you were supposed to follow the level readers that came with the series, and it just didn't work for all the kids. I had some kids who were on kindergarten reading levels and some kids who were in 5th grade. But that takes a lot of time. So I think there really needs to be that, the acknowledgement and the appreciation of how hard that really is to come up with all these different things. And I myself got really into it, and by year 3, 4, I had so many different materials for that. But then we started trying a social studies lesson, and I just didn't have as many resources for that because more of my time had gone into this. So all those questions are still out there, but I think that's why the conversations that keep going on are the most important things, because you can't get all the information in 5 minutes.
I would agree, and for me at least, walkthroughs are to look for specific things. Is the goal posted on the, like things that I can check off. It's a lot harder to see much differentiation in a walkthrough. I am more effective, and notice I was going to say easy and then I threw that word away. I am more effective at seeing differentiation if I have the time to pull up a chair and stay for a while, because then I begin to see more of the things that underpin what's going on in the room. But these are conversations that people are having everywhere, in every district, in every classroom. This is not something that's happening just here. And as we talk more and more about the diversity in our classrooms, which I would reject, because that class I had was the biggest diversity. They all look the same, but they're very diverse as learners. But as we talk about that more and more, I think that drives some of the discussion as well. That we really need to keep our eye on who is it that we're teaching in this classroom and be able to say what we know about them. Anything else you want to talk about in terms of the definitions? Okay, then we are going to do an actual lesson from beginning to end, and I want you to keep your eye out for some differentiation as we go. Okay? So, we're going to start. Just need to be patient. I had to go get your mouse this morning because I'm 72. All right, so I'm going to take something and please just humor me. I can't tell these days whether we're still doing the Common Core or whether we've moved, or whether we're having a test or whether we're not. I've given up trying to predict that. I think we're all just going to go teach, all right? But here is, and I didn't realize this little thing jumped up and down when I put it on there. It's really annoying. Here is a anchor standard in reading. Read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and make logical inferences from it. Cite specific textual evidence when writing or speaking to support conclusions drawn from the text. We start doing that with the 5-year-olds when they show up the first day of school, and we're still doing that with the 12th graders the day before graduation. Now, it's a very big deal, all right? And so we're going to do a lesson with that as the anchor standard, okay? But I have broken that down into something a little more manageable because that's just words, all right? And so at the end of this lesson, I want my students to be able to determine the explicit message. Make a logical inference. Logical is the key word here, not something that was on planet Mars, all right? A logical inference. To find evidence to support the inference, and then form and support an opinion based on the content. We could probably do that every day for the entire school year. But I have kids in my class. I've got an objective, but who's in my classroom? And please take this as possibly an 8th grade class, all right, just pretend it's a group of 8th graders. This may look like some of your classes, however. I've got several students who struggle with grade level reading. I've got some kids who have a really hard time finding supporting evidence. But I've got 4 kids in this class who demonstrate above grade level skills in making inferences and finding evidence. So I've got this pool and this pool. I've got at least 5 kids in this class who have trouble maintaining their attention for whole class instruction. Oh, does that look familiar? All right? I happen to know that a number of kids in this class who have stronger visual skills. They're the kids who, when they get it, they say to you, oh, I see. That's literally what they mean. Oh, I see. Like the picture just popped into their head, right? in a large group, and it's something I've really been trying to work on. So talk about knowing your kids. So here are the kids that are in this group, all right? We're going to come back to them after we do this lesson and see if I paid any attention to them at all, all right? So rather than, so here's what I tell the kids. At the end of this, we're going to do some cartoons. Rather than written text, we're going to take out of the mix whether you're a great reader or not. We're going to start by using some cartoons. Just lower the threat level a little bit, all right? And so at the end of this, I want you to know what the cartoonist's message is. What is he or she saying to us as the reader? I want you to find the evidence that supports that message. It'll be right there on the paper in front of you. And I want you to come up with a personal opinion about the message. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Why? Okay? And so those would be up in my room. That's what people are always looking for. They want you to put up what's the objective of the lesson. But this one starts with some modeling, because no matter what I say to the kids before, they don't actually get it unless I do one for them. And the truth is, in some of your classes, you would have to model for most of a class period. And in some of your classes, modeling ones would be fine. All right? And I know that's hard to read. I'm going to read this to you. The young man says to the adult, I'm supposed to write an essay as what is meant by the pen is mightier than the sword. First, I need to go to Google and find out what a pen is. Okay, so, what is the cartoonist saying explicitly in this cartoon? He's saying that the kid is going to go to Google and look up what's a pen. That's what he's telling us. But what's he inferring? He's inferring that kids use the computer all the time. They've forgotten that there's pen and pencil and book and paper, you know, that's just gone right by them. So his message is that kids are missing some of those skills, some of that information, because they're so reliant on technology. What evidence can I cite to support this inference? Well, look, he's going to go to Google. I can just highlight Google. There's the evidence. He doesn't know how to write an essay without first going to Google to look up the word. Do I agree or disagree? Oh, Lord, it could be so complicated, because I agree. Kids need to stop relying on the internet for everything. But then I disagree, because dictionaries weigh a lot. You know, you can look it up really fast. So I can make both sides. So, in other words, I model this for them. I talk out loud. You taking what's in your head and putting it out on the paper for the kids out in the world is exactly right. So, we are going to do this as a jigsaw strategy. Jigsaw is one of those things that's been around for 1,000,000 years. Still works. Don't get rid of the old stuff just because it's old. All right? So I'm going to give each of you a cartoon. We're going to wait until I've given everybody in the room a cartoon, and then I'm going to find you some partners who have the same cartoon that you do. And you're going to work together to answer those 4 questions about your cartoon. I don't need these back. You can write on. You can circle things. You can highlight. You can do whatever you need to answer those 4 questions. Okay? Okay, everybody needs to have a cartoon. Does everybody have one? Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're going to need to move around a little bit. So, everyone who has the boy who is doing his math homework with his cell phone, if you have that cartoon, you're going to come here. Everyone who has the kid with the test bubbles is going to come here. Leave yet. Everyone who has the kid with the humongous backpack is going to come here. Everyone who has the modern school teacher is going to come here. Everyone who has the kid who's downloading his homework is going to come here. And some of you have my favorite. Everyone who has the dog who is peeing on the benchmark is going to come here. Everybody take your cartoon, something to write with, go find your new partners. Go. Okay, everybody back to me. Now, if somebody walked into my room, this doesn't look a lot like differentiating instruction, but you're all kind of working on the same thing here. But I have the luxury of working with adults, which is I just tell you to go here and you're fine, all right? I would probably spend more time thinking about how to group the kids for this part of the lesson than any other decision that I made. Okay? And I have a couple of choices here. I could, particularly if all of these cartoons are at a fairly similar level, put you in heterogeneous groups here. So I've mixed the strengths in my classroom into various groups so that hopefully I've got some leadership in each group. And that's a perfectly fine decision, and you have differentiated because you know what level the kids are, so you've got them in the right places. I might, on occasion, I call it dealing off the bottom of the deck, right? I might on occasion make sure the kids who would struggle with this the most all ended up with the same cartoon. And somehow, miraculously, they all end up here, and they get me. So instead of this being an independent task that kids do with one another, that's what many of the groups are doing. But this group, it's more teacher-direct instruction, so I can walk them through this again. Now, one of those is not more often right than the other, but it is thinking about the grouping that really drives how to make this work. There might also be a time, this is a little riskier because now you're going to take some of the strength out of the pool and put it over here together. There might be a time when these groups are fairly heterogeneous, but I've got one cartoon that's going to present a bigger challenge than others. It's just harder to interpret, meaning I deal off the bottom of the deck, and there are just a handful of kids who could really, I think, rise to that level, who now are together, and everybody else is mixed around. You know, that there's no formula for the right way to group kids in your classroom. It's about trying different things, and it worked today, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work tomorrow. But, you know, really thinking about how this happened. Does that make sense to all of you in terms of where we are? Okay, so here's what's going to happen now. I'm going to put you on a new team. Every person on your team will have a different cartoon than you. And I'm going to give you a chance to share what you learned with someone else. Okay? I'm going to give each of you a number. Some of you may need to write your number down. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you forget your number, I'm in big trouble. Okay. Everybody got the number? Here's where we're going. 1s are going here. 2s are going here. 3s are going here. 4s are going here. 5s are going here. 6s are going here. Everybody get up and go. Great. 5 is here somewhere. Put 5 there. In the dollar store, they have big playing cards. Get yourself a box. You know, you can put a card on there, and everybody's got a card in their hand. You know, like some kids need, I can't rely on them to remember their number long enough to go from one spot to another. All right, so there should be 3 of you on each team. Each of you should have a different cartoon. You can start with anybody on the team. You each get a turn to share your cartoon with the team and tell them what you and your partners thought. If you are done, before I say time is up, I want you to look at all 3 cartoons. Is there any message that they have in common? Is there any way that you can find that they might be like one another in terms of what they're talking about? Okay? Everybody understand what you're going to do? Questions up here. Go. This is what happens when you turn them loose. They get you in the room. That is not a bad thing as long as there's work going on. All right? Was this a comfortable place for everybody? In terms of sharing? Yeah. We have kids who will not talk in front of the whole class, who are much more willing to be participants here. I'm a big fan of small groups, 2s, 3s, maybe 4s, all right? Because the minute I get a group bigger than that, first of all, somebody's not doing any work and I can't figure out who it is. But it's also true that some of your kids who are more reluctant don't necessarily speak in a large group, but may be more willing to research has been clear for 40 years that when you teach something, you remember it better than when you are just on the give me, tell me, show me, fix for me, end of that. So that anytime we can put kids in that position, that's a good thing to try and do for them. As the teacher, I owe it to them to make sure every kid goes to this group ready to share. Hence the reason you were in another team. I didn't just tell you to go do this for homework and go back and share. I gave you that lifeline by being in a group first, so that if the team doesn't like your answer, it wasn't your idea. That's what my partners say. You know, like I give them that bit of support so that they can feel more secure to do this. Yes or no? Okay, so here's what I want you to do. In a moment, you're going to get up and you're going to go back to your original team. But on the way, back to your original seat, within another 10, 15 minutes, you will not know where your seat is. It's one of my goals for the day. But you're going to go back where you were sitting when we started this lesson. All right? But on the way, you are going to pick up one of each of these handouts that are here on the counter. Okay? So thank your partners for having them together. Pick up one of everything. Before we talk about those, there would always be an opportunity to come back as a whole class and talk about what we've done. I might pick another cartoon that we haven't done in the teams and put it back up and you can walk through it again. You know, that as a teacher, I choose something that I'm going to do. But the context of this could be, it could be everybody solves a math problem and then they go teach it to somebody else. It could be that every team had to answer some questions from a textbook reading that we did. It could be, you know, the content is really pretty open-ended here, okay? But I believe in follow-up. I believe that when you have kids work in teams, it is absolutely essential that we hold all of them accountable for what they've done. Because if you don't, pretty soon some of them figure out they don't have to do much when they work on a team. So we are now going to enter the world of individual accountability, right? We'll take a look at two different things. I wouldn't do both of these. I'm just giving you two different options, okay? And the first one is called the perfect 10. And you should have two of these in your packet. We'll talk about why you have two in a second. But find the two sheets that say evaluated cartoons, perfect 10 at the top. You now have two. Yes. Oh, good. Thank you. All right? I want you to take the one first that has the larger print. Okay? So imagine, if you will, that I give you this at the end of this lesson. It is your job to do enough tasks to earn the perfect 10 points. You may choose anything on this sheet that you like. Or, as your teacher, I could highlight one, that's what it says at the top of this one, and then you can pick the other ones. But you have to do enough to earn 10 points. Look at the options on here and see how they're leveled so that there are different levels of challenge all on the same sheet. I have built-in choice for kids. Choice is a big concept in differentiating instruction. But it's not a choice of which two boring worksheets would you like to do. You know, it's about offering kids choices that would be interesting, that might be at different levels so we can accommodate kids with various academic needs. And as a teacher, I have total control over this. This is not about just letting the inmates run the asylum here. This is about me offering you choices that I think are appropriate. Notice this one says you have to do the one highlighted. You can do that or not. That's really up to you. But this way everybody does at least one that I think is at an appropriate level for them, and then they can pick the others that they would like to try. Yes or no? Now, there are kids in your class who think quantity is more important than quality. This is the perfect 10. I do not want 15 sloppy points. I do not want you to do everything on here and not, like, I want you to do the perfect 10. Although 2 4s and a 3 adds up to the perfect 11, I'm fine with that. all right? But you need to make sure the kids understand that this is about creating quality work, not just doing everything on the paper. So I did this one for this particular class. And then I looked at it and I thought, this is really good. The kids will like this. They'll be motivated to do it. There's some different levels here. But I've got some kids in this class that the fours just don't provide enough challenge. And so I created the second one that says, evaluate a cartoon in the perfect 10. So I want you to put those side by side so you can see both of them and see how they're alike and how they're different. So this is the one I hid from everybody. Okay, so I won't make you spend any time guessing. Here's what I did. I took the first sheet and I got rid of the 2 pointers. I just took them away. I took the 3s and made them 2s. I took the 4s and made them 3s. And then I added 2 more challenging tasks. And you can see that the challenge level for the 2 that I added are really pretty high. Okay? Now, I may have a class for whom the first one is perfect. That's exactly the range of kids I've got in my class. I may have a group of kids for whom that one is just perfect. And the truth is, sometimes you've got a group where the range is so big, you might need both of these. But there is enough similarity in these that it's not like I started over again. I didn't create 2 totally different tasks. I just upped the ante a little in the second task. Yes or no? Okay. So I brought you some other samples of perfect 10s from some classrooms. All right? You have one that comes from just the perfect 10 reading response questions. A first grade teacher did this for me. Lynda, I like this a lot, but I did not have the time or the energy to do this for every single book we read. So she created a set of generic questions to use. All right? So if you have reading centers, think about the things you ask when you're doing a reading group. You might want to create some questions that are fairly generic so the kids can have a choice. There is one from the Great Peacock Tree, which is a kids' fictional read about the rainforest. There's one about owls, which is a nonfiction read from a book by Gail Gibbons about owls. All right, so I need to see a couple of samples. This also works really well for math problems. If you have level problems in your math books, just type them in here, give them a point value, okay? Sometimes I do these so that kids can't do just 2s. You know, there's not enough to do just all 2s. There may be other times, particularly if you're doing math problems, where you want to give them more 2s to choose from. That's totally up to you. Okay? Those of you who teach kindergarten, yellow ones to green ones. You know, then you can start doing that. By the end of the year, somebody may have to 10, but for now, you know, okay? So, perfect 10, yes or no? Okay? So I'm going to talk about another possibility. Take a minute and talk to one another about this one. Where could you use the perfect 10? And believe me when I tell you that when you do the perfect 10, do not start from scratch. Take things you already have that are fairly level, type them in a grid, and then figure out I need 1 more 2. Or I need another 4. You know, like, don't reinvent the wheel here. You probably have much of what you need to create one of these already at hand. Okay, so talk about that a little bit. Where might the perfect 10 fit? Okay, questions about the perfect 10. Here's what I like about the perfect 10. Gives kids choice, provides for different levels, and it's all on one piece of paper. Because sometimes when you create different assignments for different kids, you now have a lot of stuff floating around. This is just more manageable for me because it's here. It's on one page, right? You can give them letters of the alphabet so kids can write the letters on their sheet when they answer. You can highlight some and not others. Talk to me about the perfect 10. Does that work for any of you? Yeah?
We're talking about how it really translated to center's time or
Absolutely.
station to whatever you call it.
Particularly if you do some generic ones, so you don't have to change them, so you do one for fiction, and one for nonfiction, or one for your reading science things, you know, different kinds of things. I also have here, and I apologize, I'm going to have a couple of copies of this. You seem to have had a leak in my basement, so a couple of these are wet. This is called the Perfect 100 Book Report, all right? I believe some fifth grade teachers and I created this. So it's got tests about character, tests about setting, tests about story structure, tests about making personal connections. And each task is worth 20, 30, or 40 points. So when kids were reading different books, they used the Perfect 100 Book Report. So you're welcome to take one of these, make copies, and share with each other. I don't know how this meant, but we wanted to make it a perfect 100 because this class had some rules about their writing, like you have to use capital letters. So you can't take a point away from the perfect 10 because then you're really in trouble. As opposed to the perfect 100, if you don't follow the writer rules, you could lose a point or two and it's not the end of the world. So that's why we did the perfect 100. But we did this by taking a bunch of books that we had that had tasks to do with books, and we just, I'm terrible about violating the copyright law. So we just made copies of everything, we cut them up, we sorted them into piles, then we sorted them into challenging, not so challenging, and then we just gave them point values and put them in here. Just take what you have. Those of you, questions about the perfect 10?
Awesome idea.
You like that?
Love it.
I find probably of the things I share with you, that's one teachers take back to class really quickly, because the differentiation is also really obvious there. Okay? My job as the teacher is to make sure the 4s are challenging enough, the 2s are basic. Like I need to know what the span is when I create the task. After that, we're good to go. Okay? So I want to share another one with you. So I might do the perfect 10, but I might also do something called tic-tac-toe. So you should have one that says evaluate a cartoon tic-tac-toe. Now, tic-tac-toe is a bigger investment in time. A perfect 10 the kids could do for homework tonight. Like you could put it in a station, they could work on. Tic-tac-toe I would use more as an end of a unit assessment. It's bigger in terms of the investment in time and energy. As a student, I need to do 3 in a row. Vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. So find the one that says evaluate a cartoon tic-tac-toe and look at the choices that are on there. You would have to do 3. Vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. Okay, so I want you to think about yourself as a learner. If I gave this to you, which one on here is the one where you say, yes, I want to do that? Because then you have to do 2 more. Which one just do you say, wow, that's exactly what I would like to do? Somebody tell me, what would you do? Which one on here would be the perfect choice for you?
And diagram.
You do the Venn diagram. It makes you happy. You can see it.
Yes.
It's very visual. Okay. Somebody else, what would you do? Yes.
Create a cartoon that delivers an opposing message.
Okay, so you'd like to take the opposite side. Which one would you want to do? Okay, somebody else. Which one would be perfect for you?
Clear message. Pick the one that is best job delivering.
Okay, so you're really comfortable with the evaluative part of it. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, see, I'm with you. I have no talent whatsoever, but I will sing the drum back. Okay? Now, I want to put on options on here where the kids say, oh, yippee, I want to do that. And then they have to do 2 other things that I want them to do. So we grab them, there's the hook, I'm going to do that one, but that's only one of those, okay? Now, I've been doing these for years, and I will tell you in all honesty, the first couple of these I did took me forever. I'm sitting at the computer trying to think, what the heck am I going to put in these boxes? But I have a formula now, and I'm going to give it to you. And tomorrow you're going to see some other examples of this. They all follow this formula. So follow along on your sheet, and you're going to write right on it, okay? Top left-hand box, the key word is summarize. So I create a task where you have to summarize. It could be as simple as make a 3-cell cartoon that shows the key events in a story or something we learned. It could be something as complex as write a 3-paragraph, summary of what we learned in this chapter, but it's a summary test. The second one across, the key word is predict. So I create a test that asks you to predict. And the third one in the top row, the key word is create, and that's something artistic. Draw, paint, sculpt, build, something that will appeal to the art kids. Okay, everybody see the top row. Next row down. On the left, the key word is write. So it's a writing test. Write a postcard, write a letter to, write a newspaper article about, write an obituary for, write whatever. Write an explanation, okay? Second one is compare and contrast. In this case, it's a Venn diagram. It could be any task that asks the kids to do some kind of compare and contrast. And the third one across, the key word is imagine. And that can be two things. In this case, it's imagine you're the cartoonist. So it's imagine you are, or imagine you could. All right, so keyword there is imagine. Bottom row, left-hand side, make a decision. It's the first one. Which one did the best job? Make a decision. Explain your choice. Next one over is music. Song, chant, cheer, rhyme, rap, poem, jingle, whatever would appeal to your music kids. And the last one, the keyword is evaluate. Now, I will not promise you that that system works every time, but I'm a lot speedier now. Because I pull that template up on my computer and I start. And if one doesn't work, I just get rid of it and put in something else. You will also notice, this is by design, art and music are not in the same row. I did that on purpose, because I want every kid to have access to the goodies. Oh, yippee, I want to do that. But I don't want them doing just goodies. I want them to do the things that I think are important. There may be times when I mix these up a little bit, and I put one in the center box that I want everybody to do. Might not be this one. I take one that is really, particularly if I'm using it as an end of the unit assessment, there might be one task that I want to see from every kid so that I have that kind of baseline for everybody, and then I let them pick the two others. So, again, perfect 10 is one option. Tic-tac-toe is another, all right? Tic-tac-toe, bigger, more summative. Perfect 10, more day-to-day. Not as big an investment of time. All right, and you will get some other examples of tic-tac-toe in some other lessons that we're going to do. So, think about everything we did. From, I posted the objectives, I modeled for you, I had you work with partners, I had you teach somebody else, and I let you do either the perfect 10 or tic-tac-toe, depending on what I think is best for this class. And I want you to look back at these kids that I identified for you. Several students struggle with grade level reading. Finding appropriate evidence is a challenge. I do have some kids who are consistently above grade level at those skills, however. I have 5 who have trouble maintaining attention if we do much whole class instruction. Some kids in this class have stronger visual skills, and some are reluctant to speak in a large group. I want you to look back at what we did from beginning to end, and think about those kids. What did we do for those kids? Okay? Talk to each other, and then we'll come back and share it, because to me, that's differentiation in practice. Okay, so let me come back and talk to you. Can you see, here's my question, can you see that this knowledge of my students drove some of the choices you saw in this series? Okay? That's differentiation. So when someone comes into a room and wants to know what differentiation is going on, look, there are 100 things I know about my students. thinking about when I make these choices. That makes every choice that I made differentiation, even if it didn't look like it at the moment. Yes or no? Does that make sense to you? Everybody okay here? Questions? Start with this, and this is my language, but to kind of summarize what we've talked about so far, we must meet the needs of all of our students by constantly reflecting on our professional practice. We vary our instruction and choose among many different techniques and strategies based on ongoing assessment of the student progress. Those are my rules, but to me, that's kind of what differentiated instruction is. And so Thomason says there are some things that we need to consider when we talk about differentiation. So just to make your life more complicated, you're going to start with the 4 boxes at the bottom of this graphic organizer. So we're going to talk first about the students. And I already heard some of this language in the conversation this morning, so I know that this is not unfamiliar to you, right? But I think it pays us, now that we've done a couple of things together, to go back and use those words when we talk about the kids. And she says that there are 4 things you need to know about your students. There are many people who think the first one is all there is to differentiated instruction. That readiness is everything. When they walk into your room, what do they already know or not? What reading level do they test at? How many multiplication facts do they know? You know, like, that readiness is a huge part of differentiation, but it is not all of differentiation. Okay, so I hope you will see in many of the lessons we do that we accommodate kids based on their readiness. Some of what we know about their readiness we can test for. Take your quiz and you know this many multiplication facts. But some of it is really much bigger and more subtle in terms of our understanding. I have over the last number of years become obsessed with the kids' vocabulary. I believe that one of the biggest differences between kids who do well in school and kids who don't is the vocabulary load they come with. And I include in that kind of the background knowledge, the vocabulary background. There's some kids who are really lucky. They come from homes where people actually talk to each other, where they are ready to. And we have others who don't have access to that. And that is not about intellect, it is about opportunity. Okay? It is about what kids get exposed to. Those people who study vocabulary tell us that when kids enter kindergarten, the difference between the high vocab kids and the low vocab kids is not measured in hundreds of words, it is quite literally measured in thousands of words. And if we don't do something over the years instead of getting smaller, that gap just gets bigger. You know that. You see that every day. Right? We have young ones in the family, and after a long stretch where we had a lot of young adults and nobody was. Okay? So my niece is a biology teacher, and so she's quite sure her 2 boys are going to be really smart and sciencey. And so when he was 4, Connor said to me, "Aunt Lynda, did you know that a kangaroo was a marsupial?" His mother teaches science. And I said to him, "No, dear, I did not know that a kangaroo was a marsupial. How do you know that?" He goes, "Well, she has a pouch." Now, I'm not telling you that he's smarter than any other kid when he walked into kindergarten, but he came with something other kids did not. He came with a lot of vocabulary. And so part of readiness is not only looking at kids' skill-based, but what do they come with in terms of the background knowledge and vocabulary. And that is not always socioeconomic. You have some kids who come from homes where it looks like they have very little, but whose parents, and one of the keywords there, take advantage of what's available to them. They go to everything. They go to the park, they walk around the block, you know, they go to the public library. And you have other kids who come from homes where it looks like they have a lot, but I despair of what they do between the end of one school day and the beginning of the next, because they don't seem to be doing much to acquire more vocabulary and background knowledge. So readiness is really bigger than just what you can see on the test. It's really more about what kids come with. Okay? Other thing to know in terms of readiness is that the research tells us that at any age level, a 3-year span is perfectly normal developmentally. Now, very early this morning, I admitted to being the oldest person in the room, right? I am 72. On a good day, you might think I was 70. You know, like a 3-year span is, there's a point in your life when it is simply irrelevant, all right? But the kids you have, that 3-year span is immense. So if you teach 4th grade, right? So kids in 4th grade are 9 when school starts. So imagine, 4th grade, just pretend that they're all 9. I know that they're all 9. They range developmentally from 7.5 to 10.5. There's nothing wrong with any of them. That is the normal range of development. If you know that, look at them. All right, I could put my 4th graders back up on the screen. There were some kids in that class who were as tall as I was. And there were others that, honest to goodness, if they decided to run out of the room, they could have grabbed them by the back of their pants and they would have gone over. You know, that if they grow that way physically, why should we be surprised that they grow that way socially, emotionally, intellectually, academically, and just because you know one thing about a kid doesn't mean you know any of the others. So the kid in your classroom who looks physically the most mature may be the least developed when you're in the room. And the kid in your class who comes about up to here may have the best social skills of anybody in the building. You know, that there is, you know, we talk about what people don't understand about why this job is so hard. Well, there's one. You know, they think that like there's a magic 4th grader and you just punch 30 of them out of the press and put one in every seat and we're good to go. They have absolutely no idea how different kids are from one another. I used to like to stand outside of high school on the first day of school and watch the new 9th graders get off the bus. And some of them would walk up to me and I'd have to look up. And they'd say to me, "Can you help me find my room?" Okay, good. And then I watch the next one get off the bus and I think, "Oh Lord, this poor kid's going to be in somebody's locker by 7:45 because the growth spurt that kid did get." You know that. Kids are different from one another. It's not about good or bad, it's just the way they are. If you have 2 kids live at your house, they're different from each other. You wonder where they both came from because one of them's not anything like you. You know, that is the nature of kid development, okay? So readiness is one of the things we consider. The second thing we think about is interest. And I know that in an era of high-stakes testing, when on a certain day in the school year, everybody has to be ready to take the test, it is easy to poo-poo interest. You don't really need to be interested, just pay attention. You know? We have kids for whom interest is everything. It is the thing that motivates them. It is the thing that holds their attention. It is the thing that makes them be part of this class for longer than seconds that we can measure it. When I taught in New Brunswick, 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders, the boys, because I most of the boys, were very clear with me that they could care less about math. What they cared about was money. Because in the days before everybody had a credit card, Grandma would send them to the store to shop. And they better come home with a random change. And so any math concept I could turn into a money problem, we were going to be fine. And any math concept I couldn't turn into a money problem was going to be a really long day, unless we were doing fractions and I cut something up and fed. That's also reasonably cool. But you know that. There are kids for whom interest is everything. I'm in a 1st grade classroom one year, very early in the school year. And I have such admiration for you who teach the little guys because it's September in 1st grade. And nobody has any idea where they're supposed to be going and what they're supposed to be doing because it's September. And so there are 2 teachers in the room, both with the reading room, and there are other kids in the independent reading center. So I'm such a teacher, I can't help myself. So I look at this one little boy who's kind of reading like this. Okay, and then you know, somebody's face just popped into your head when I say that. So I go over to him and I say, "Tell me what kind of books you like." He looked at me for a minute and then decided to talk to this odd woman who's wandering around his room. He goes, "Dinosaurs, crocodiles, motorcycles." Okay, got something to work with. I look at the table. There is not a single book on this table about dinosaurs, crocodiles, or motorcycles. So I said, "Sounds to me like you like animal books. Let's see if we can find an animal book." And he looked at me with a level of disdain that only a 6-year-old can get away with. And he says to me, "Dinosaurs, crocodiles, and motorcycles." Like, lady, you asked me. That was the program. But you know that if we ask a kid to self-select a book, their reading level is higher than if we just give them a book to read. Works every time. Okay? So interest. The third thing is learning profile. And you were talking about that this morning in terms of your kinesthetic learners, your visual learners, you know, your kids who love music. There are kids who like art. You know, that you can talk about Gardner's multiple intelligences. You can talk about visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactual learners. I don't, honest to goodness, care. All right? As long as you know there's more than one way to be smart, and then we teach you so there's more than one way to be smart. All right? Kids know a lot more about themselves as learners than we give them credit for. The problem is they often don't tell us the truth because they tell us what they think the smart kids do. So you really have to work with them. I can't tell you how many high school kids I've had in my office and they would tell me they were good at listening. Honest to goodness. You know, why are you here in my office if you were good at listening? The smart kids are good at listening, so they want you to think they're one of the smart kids, and so they tell you things that aren't necessary. They know. They know a lot more. They just don't have the vocabulary or the trust in us to tell us how they learn best. And so one of the questions often after we do something like the tic-tac-toe, which one would you pick? Which one would be perfect for you? If I asked you to just pick one, which one would it be? To give us that kind of insight into how kids learn best. And those were Tomlinson's original 3, back in like the mid-90s when she wrote her first book. And then later she wrote another book called Fulfilling the Promise, where she added affect. And I'll be honest with you, she puts that someplace else. I've worked with kids with special needs and struggling learners of all sorts for long enough that I know without a doubt that affect belongs here. You take that forward as well. How do I feel about myself as a learner? Am I one of those kids who can take a risk, try something new, not come unhinged when it doesn't work out? Or am I one of those kids, if I raise my hand at all, kind of do this again, because I don't actually want you to call me? By the time I'm 7 or 8, and announcing things like, well, you know I'm not any good at fill in the blank. That breaks my heart. You have your whole life to figure out what you're not good at. You don't have to make that decision when you're 7. Right? But we have kids who have very little confidence in themselves as learners. And what's interesting to me is I approach this because I come from special ed, where we've got a lot of kids who have struggled and have figured out that the struggle doesn't always pay. You know, I tried to learn to read in 2nd grade, it didn't work. But that they had a hard time. But we've got some high-end learners who don't like to take a risk, who don't like to try something new, who somehow have figured out how to get an A, and it's really better if we don't mess with them. You know, if we don't ask them to work outside their comfort zone. So I've come to understand that that whole affect piece is much bigger than my own life teaching experience with kids who struggle. I think that really crosses the board. We have a lot of kids who are just, and I don't know who to attribute this to, but so you just have to trust me on this. It's a statement about kids come to school as question marks and leave as periods. You know, they come with questions and they just, that's not so, you know, like we want them to still be the question marks. We want them to take the risk, to try something new. Those are the 4 things that on any given day you have no control over. That's what rolls into your room. Over time as a teacher, I think you have tremendous impact on several of these, but the next day, it's just who you've got to work with. I think you teach a kid something, they're more ready for the thing that comes next. A huge impact there. I think depending on what you bring into a classroom, you can really tap interests in kids. I'm a huge music lover. When I was a classroom teacher, we always had music. Although I think good music ended with old Motown. But, you know, like the kids would then want to, you know, like some kids developed an interest in music because that was a passion of mine. My sister taught elementary school for years. My sister's an animal bird. Okay, they raised chicks, they raised butterflies, they had a pond. You know, like every year her kids had something that was popping out of somewhere. And so kids who may not have had that experience, some of them developed an interest. You know, we can spark interest in kids if we give them opportunities. Learning profile is probably the most stable of these in terms of they just are who they are. But I think there are kids who have untapped potential. I think there are kids who have strengths we haven't seen yet. And so really looking at them more clearly can help us find those. And affect, my goodness, we spend more time trying to create a classroom that is safe and comfortable for kids. That's job number 1. So I think we do have impact on all of these, but tomorrow it's just who you have to work with. Spending a lot of time fussing around about whether this, whether that, whether the other thing doesn't seem to do us a lot of good. They just don't. Okay? Yes, everybody good? So when someone says to you, why did you make that choice? I can say, here's what I know about the readiness of kids in my classroom. Or here's what I know about tapping into kids' interest. I have kids with a specific learning, in other words, that's the language that you can use to tell someone why this was a better choice for this group of kids than this or this. Okay? We'll come back to this later in the video, but enough of the sound of my own voice for tonight. So we're going to do a little math here. In fact, we're going to do a couple of different math things because I want you. One of the big issues for math is finding ways for kids to practice appropriately. All right? Here's what we know about practice. Practicing all wrong is the absolute worst thing you can do. Because when kids practice correctly, sometimes they remember and sometimes they don't. But when they practice all wrong, it is somehow set in their head in cement for eternity. I don't know why that happens, but you all know. Okay? So we are going to do two different math scavenger hunts, each differentiated in a different fashion, so that you can see a couple of options. And the first one we're going to do is one that uses money. Okay? Over here. Comes from a second grade classroom where kids were learning to count coins. So I'm going to give each of you a sheet of colored paper. So thank you for doing it for so long. I'll be back for a little more restraint later. In a moment, you are going to get up and you are going to go in the next scavenger hunt. I have come over here on both sides of the bookcase and on this one. Some cards that have coins on them. Each card has a letter on it. You will write the amount that's on the card in the box with that letter. There are different color cards on the wall. Some are lavender, some are green, some are yellow. The color of your sheet will tell you which cards to go see. If you find someone in the room who has the same color sheet that you do, you may work together. Or if you prefer, you can work by yourself. All right? I will know that you're done when you'll be back in your seat and you will have filled an amount of money into each of these boxes. But before you do that, I want you to look at the different colors that are up there, because we're going to talk later about how this is differentiated. Okay? So, everybody's going to go visit their own color, but you're going to take a peek at everything else that's up there. You can start anywhere and work in any direction. They all have letters on them. Just make sure you fill in every box before you come back. Everybody understand what to do? Take your sheet, take something to write with, and go. But there were 3 different levels there, as we'll talk about that. I certainly tapped into interest. I said scavenger hunt instead of workbook page. It's just that simple, all right? I certainly accommodated some learning profile. I built in movement, I built in visuals, impact on that. So, talk to me about the levels. Which one was the most basic? Purple. Purple, okay. What was the highest amount of money? 50 cents. Okay, now, I literally stole this from a second grade classroom. Okay? They had one of the little girls in that class was visually impaired. And so for her, they set out the coins so she could touch them. Here's what we learned. All the kids who struggle with money really did better when they could touch them. So not only is it up to 50 cents, the coins are there. They are all in counting order. Didn't mix them up at all heads. I took out every distractor that I could think of. Those kids did the same kind of practice as everybody else. They practiced their skill in counting money. Which one would have been next in terms of level? Yellow. What was the higher amount there? 60 cents? I mean, it could be anything you think. But I didn't put all the coins in counting order. I may have mixed them up a little bit. There were some heads and tails. So that probably represents what I would think of as just your basic grade level skill. Okay? And then the green one represents those kids who would have finished counting the money before I gave out the papers. What did I do for them? There's certainly more coins. There were other kinds of coins on there, some of which are a little unfamiliar. I was able to find some that might not be. Nothing makes me happier than the kid who knows everything says, I'm not quite sure what this is. Yes. Because if I don't do that, that kid never learns to ask that question. This is not about trying to give them a nervous breakdown. It's about teaching them that they can learn new things too. They don't always have to know everything before we start. It probably went up to $2. Now, what would be the appropriate rate in somebody's class? I can't tell you, but do you see the difference here? Right? The curriculum didn't change. Everyone needs to build their skills in terms of counting money. What I left, I differentiated the heck out of everything else. Right? What's nice about these is I can take them down, put them in an envelope, put them in a center, so that the kids who did purple this month, maybe next month as a task, they can take the green ones. And the kids who did the green ones, maybe next month they can take the yellow. You know, like over time, kids can do other levels as well. Right? I would have the kids do this by themselves or with a partner, whatever you think is more appropriate. If they do it with a partner, this time they're with a like ability partner rather than a mixed ability partner. Because kids who need the same thing are working at the same level. Yes or no? Does that make sense to you? So that's one kind of practice scavenger hunt. We're going to do another one. And I'm going to put, some of you are going to want to go to the nurse when I tell you this, but we're going to do some practice with order of operations. Okay? And so this would follow a lesson. This would follow a lesson that we did in class where we were practicing finding the value using order of operations. Okay? And so quickly, for someone who has not done anything with order of operations in a while, what's the first thing you do? Parentheses, thank you. What's the next thing you do? Exponents, very good. Next one. Multiplication and division, left to right. Let's start over here. All right? And then we do addition and subtraction. Multiplication and division, then we do addition and subtraction. Okay? But for anybody who's in a panic, not to worry, because I'm going to give you all the answers. Okay? So, you're going to walk up to it. Starts over here with A, runs all the way over there. Okay? You're going to go to one of them. I'm going to get you a partner. You're going to work together. You're going to see if that is equal to one of the numbers on here. If it's not, do it again. Because I'm telling you, I've done this a bunch of times, and the right answers are on this paper. Right? So you will write the letter and the expression in the box. Then you will move on and try another one. Now, those of you who are feeling a little intimidated by this will notice that there are two different colors up there. Okay? You might find that one color is just a little less challenging than the other. So if you come to one end, it goes really hard, skip ahead to test. You know, but this way kids who struggle have a chance to start with something that is a little more accessible to them. All right? So I'm going to give each of you a number and get you a partner. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, who's your partner? 2, who's your partner? 3, who's your partner? 4, who's your partner? 4, raise your hand. 4, 5, who's your partner? 6, who's your partner? 7, who's your partner? 8 and 8. We'll have one team of 3. Don't make me sorry, I have 3 to work together. All right, so here's what you're going to need. You're going to need something to write with and one of these sheets. I would make the kids each have their own sheet, but we could save a little paper. You and your partner have a sheet together. Make sure you are working together. I don't want to see you over here and your partner over there. We're going to do partners. Grab a sheet. Go hunt. Go.
Oh, that's why. 12 times 2 is 24, and 21.
So this way you get a number that's not
So
on
tick.
randomly writing down any old ridiculous thing. You just have to actually think about it. So there's something about having answers on there. You know, and if you get an answer that's not on here, I'm not going to mark it wrong for you. You're just going to go back and do it again until you get an answer that's on the paper.
It's perfect. And we do all of them, even though? Okay.
Answers up here, kids need to do it right, as opposed to just writing down any or copying anything.
Right.
If the number's not on here, then you need to do it again. And so I'm getting, even if they don't do them all, they're getting correct answers for the ones that they do. Oops, excuse me. What do having the answers do for you? It justified your work. Oh, I got that one right. Okay? Anything else it did for you?
If you didn't get it, then of course you kind of use the right strategy.
Right. Rather than writing any old ridiculous thing down in the box and announcing you're done. That's not my favorite thing. To me, it was more important that you got right answers in the boxes than you did them all. That's really not important. Anything else it did for you?
Felt accomplished, and especially with using a teammate to maybe figure out if you did something wrong. It was easier to solve.
Yeah, I like this as a partner strategy, although you can certainly have the kids do it alone if that makes more sense to you. And I think it builds confidence in kids, you know, that I could do this. You know, the answers are on here. I talked about this before. There's nothing worse than kids practicing wrong. Okay? So let me give you a couple of other examples of this from math class. The 6th grade teachers and I did this with changing fractions to decimals. So there were fractions on the wall and the equivalents were on the paper. Okay? You know, you can do it with all kinds of math, really any kinds of problems. Some kids would need clipboards, some would need whiteboards, you know, things like that. There's only so much stuff I will drag with me on any given day. Whatever are the tools you think they might need. Okay? So I've been using this for a while as a math strategy, and sometimes I have teachers who just surprise the heck out of me. So I'm doing this with a group from the Department of Ed, and we had some English teachers from Warren County Vocational Schools, one of the vocational high schools. And the English teacher said, we're reading Macbeth. And the kids have a terrible time translating Shakespeare's language into everyday English that they can understand. So here's what she did. I thought this was so clever. She put quotes from the play on the paper. She put the everyday English quotes around the room on the wall. The kids had to match the Shakespeare quote with the actual English they would understand. Yes, have I explained that so you can visualize that, okay? And then they went and read the play, and they were doing better because they were actually able to take some of the really hard passages and turn them into a language that made sense to them. I had a teacher who did this with the study guides in our classroom. Said, oh, the kids in my class, they think the study guide is just an exercise in filling in every blank, not an exercise in coming up with quality answers. So for the next chapter, I think this was a sixth grade teacher, but anyway, for the next chapter in the social studies book, she took the study guide and she typed up a really good answer to every question. She hung them around the room. And the kids had to go find the answer to the questions in their study guide. Yes or no? Does that make sense? And she said for those kids who were actually inclined to study, they did better on the test because they had good answers to study from rather than whatever it was they were making up when they filled out their study guide. Then she also said to me, Lynda, this is way too much work. I don't have the time to be doing this for every chapter. So she divided the kids into teams. After they'd done it 3 or 4 times with her providing the answers. So they had models of what good answers look like. So this team might get questions 1, 2, and 3. And this team might get questions 4, 5, and 6. Yes, team? Okay, so you really got the questions around them. The kids got colored sheets of paper and markers. So once they got their answer approved by the teacher, keywords there, answer approved by the teacher, they put it on a sheet of colored paper, you know, they decorated whatever made them happy. Hung them around the room, the kids went out and did the same scavenger hunt, only this time the answers were provided by the kids rather than by the teacher. And so here's 2 things we found out. One we expected, the other was a pleasant surprise. The kids said, oh, questions 1, 2, and 3, those are the ones we did. They were the easiest ones on the test. And they began to realize that the ones where they created the answers, rather than just taking them down off the walls, were easier for them to remember. So they were learning an important study skill about doing the work, helping them remember. But then they began to take some ownership in what went up on the wall. And so she started to hear things like, well, we could write a better answer than that. Or, let's look in the book. But because their team logo or number or symbol or whatever went on the bottom of those answers, so everybody in the class could see them when they used them, they began to take finding the answers more seriously. I thought that was really clever on her part to do it, but also a bit of an aha insight into how kids' minds work about these things. So this one is only generated by what goes on the wall, what goes on the paper. Is it question and answer? Is it problem and answer? Is it quote and another version of it? Okay, so, but it's about putting something up and having something to use to go hunt. All right? So this one, leveled. This one not, but the support is built in by what you put on the paper. So take a minute and think about the idea of a scavenger hunt as a practice strategy. You've seen 2 math ones, but honestly, you can adapt them to do a lot of other things. So think about your own curriculum and where this might work. Okay, does this appeal to any of you in terms of something, one of the other, these or both, that might work in your classroom? Give me some specific ideas. Where do you think this might be a good fit? Think about last year's class. Where was this fit? Yeah.
We're talking everywhere. We're talking about you could use it for what is it, videos, adages, proverbs, vocabulary, definitions in general, really for different
Right. Sometimes with vocabulary we do this. They get a sheet with a definition on it. There's a blank for the vocabulary word, but there's also some kind of a visual that's up on the wall. So not only do they fill in the word, but they may need to draw a picture to go with it. Will sometimes be helpful. And sometimes with the vocabulary, I put up on the wall the term and the definition, and then they just have the definitions on their paper, so that they're not filling in the wrong words. But it's a good vocabulary practice, absolutely. Anybody else? Yes.
Similar with their call and effect. So like either they should find the cost, whatever effect they have.
Yeah, and we're going to do a cause and effect lesson either tomorrow or Thursday, because that's really hard for the kids, it's so abstract. Okay, good. Okay, anybody else?
Like, concurrence with providing,
Absolutely.
like, easy cat word, but generally, it's like not a team or different grade or.
Sure. Yeah, some kids could have pictures on their papers so that they match the picture that rhymes with the other picture. So bat, cat, without even and filling in the words themselves. Okay? Anybody else? Okay, then, so that's a scavenger hunt, and mainly these for practice, right? Scavenger hunts make really good practice alternatives. Look at some of the worksheet, paper, and pencil things you have in your classroom. Some of them translate to some kind of a scavenger hunt. All right, just think about, is there a time when kids could do the same practice, but get up and move around a little bit, okay? So we're going to go back and finish your graphic organizer, and then we're going to do some reading. So we talked about the things we need to know about the kids. These are the things that go at the top. And the first one is content. And content to me is really the teacher-driven stuff. How do I represent the new learning to my students? So do I, as the teacher, model for them? That's one way to deliver the content. Do I show a video? Do I read a book? Do I put up a picture? You know, like, what are the different ways I can deliver content to my students? So that tends to be the one that is really teacher-driven. It's how I represent that to them. Do I have them read from the textbook? And do I have them go on the computer and Google something? All right? But how, it's really, to me, it's the input piece, right? How do we put that new information out there for kids? And I will tell you that the lines between these things are not set in stone. So sometimes it's hard to tell when we go from one to the other. I don't think that's a bad thing, right? You just have to call it something so you can talk about it. The second is process. And this is when the kids have to do something. You were talking this morning back here about process as being one of the ways we differentiate. So how do the kids engage with the new learning? So we just had a scavenger hunt. That was one way for the kids to take, I should explain how to do order of operations, to now they learn it, they process it. There are honestly as many different ways to have kids process learning as there are drops of water in the ocean. It's really a matter of making the right choices for them, right? And product is how do the kids then express that learning to me? How do I know they got it? So today you saw the perfect 10. That's one product. You saw the tic-tac-toe. That's a product. The truth is, even your worksheet from the scavenger hunt could be a product. It's probably not a product that I grade as opposed to the others, which I might, but it's do the kids produce something that is evidence of their learning? Now, here's where I really need to talk about Tomlin's use of the language. She sees the product as kind of the big thing that comes at the end. I am a huge fan of teacher observation. I think your ability to walk around the room, eavesdrop on the group, ask the right question, which is something I think we're all still working on, okay? But I would not dismiss those as evidence of student learning. So products suggest something you get to hold in your hand. I would like to expand that definition just a little to be everything that gives teachers evidence of student learning, not just every piece of evidence that is visible to everybody else, okay? In fact, nobody really taught me how to be a good observer. You know, that was one of those on-the-job things. You get there and figure out how to do it. But I believe it is one of the biggest tools in differentiated instruction because you don't have to wait until you take all the papers home tonight to grade to come back tomorrow and do what a kid needs. If you're a good observer in the classroom, you can frequently kind of change things and go in a different direction, or just say to some kids, okay, we're going to spend 3 more minutes of this, and then we're going to make a small group and I'm going to go over it again. I mean, sometimes it's just as simple as that, because I saw that there were kids having some difficulty with this. And sometimes the kids can help you with that. I was in a 4th grade class one day, a math class, and once a week they had some kind of a review correct answers on their paper. And gradually I saw a couple of kids get up and take their chairs and pull them over to a different table. And one of the teachers sat down there. Here's how it worked. Anybody who didn't get all of them right got to take their paper over there, and the teacher sat down with them and went back and fixed them. So the kids self-identify. I need a little help with this review skill. I need a little help with that review skill. It took 3 minutes. We're not talking about a whole class period here. And so at the end of it, because they only did it on days when there was then some kind of group work going on, so kids weren't missing whole class instruction, and then they could go join their team and they were good. So tell me, who's in this group? She said to me, I have 2 frequent flyers. Every time we do this, they're over here for a little extra help. The rest of the group tends to change based on what topic are we reviewing, who's been absent, you know, like just whatever, so that it was just no big deal. You just picked up your chair, you moved over there, you made the corrections, you went back with the rest of the group. I thought that's another way to just use not only your own observations, but kids' own evaluation of how they're doing. Not to wait for that big product at the end, but to do it as part of the ongoing routine in the classroom. Okay? So product. And the last one is learning environment. Meaning, I think, 2 things. How does our room look, and how does our room feel? Okay? This requires, somebody said this morning about classroom management. This requires superb classroom management. If you struggle with classroom management, this will not fix it. Quite the contrary, it will probably give you a nervous breakdown. Because there's a lot more movement, there's a lot more stuff. There are kids putting supplies back and getting supplies, you know, there's a lot more going on in a classroom when you do this kind of instruction. And so we really need some management skills to help us with the look of the room. How is the furniture arranged? You know, where do the kids keep their things? Who picks up at the end of the class period? You know, who puts things away? Better not have to be me. Okay, so that, you know, there is that piece. So there is the whole, what skills do I teach the kids? Right? So I'm going to tell you my favorite management strategy. Those of you who teach 5th and 6th grade, you may not want to try this one, but I was in a 1st grade class one day. We were doing a lesson together. The kids were in small rooms on the floor with big sheets of newsprint, scissors, pictures to cut out, markers, and glue sticks, because I am a very brave woman. Right? And they were doing a really good job. It was a big compare and contrast, and they had to sort things and label them. Great job. By the time we were done, there were little scraps of paper everywhere. And when I have the opportunity to be in any of your classrooms, I try to be really respectful of your space and your time. So I said to this teacher, but I know for a long time, I promise you I will not leave it until we clean up this mess. She goes, no, Lynda, just stand back and watch. And she takes the garbage can and she walks to the center of the room and she goes, I wonder who will find the magic scrap today. And these 6-year-olds start jogging around the room, picking up scraps of paper, dropping it in the garbage can, and she's going, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And so like the next to the last scrap appears, falls in the garbage, she goes, oh, you found it. She gives the kid a sticker, and she swears she can't work on you. But I'm not suggesting you have the magic scrap. I'm not suggesting that you won't need the magic scrap. What I'm suggesting is you need a strategy. You need a plan for putting supplies out, getting supplies back, moving kids from one room. I've had you move a couple of times today. You're grown-ups. You do this really well. All right? I was in a 4th grade class one day where the teacher had kids. She'd already told them what team they were going to be on, and it was all posted on the board for them to see. And then she picked up the book, the notebook, and the pencil, and she said to them, when you get up, you need to look like this. Because otherwise it takes kids the better part of a half class period to go from here to here to here. So part of the learning environment is really identifying those management skills that are going to make this work for you. Because otherwise, you just don't want to do this. It's just too much chaos, right? But the second thing is about how the classroom feels. This is a safe place for kids, a place where they can raise their hand and ask what everyone else in the room will think is a really stupid question, but nobody gets to say so or roll their eyes. You know, where kids can take a risk and be rewarded for that. Where kids can try something new and get a round of applause, even if it's a mess. You know, where kids feel that this is a place where they can say, I need help with this. Or this was easy for me. Can the next one, you know, where you can have this kind of conversation with kids. And that whole piece is really hard. It's really hard. Okay? Those are the 4 things that you do have some control over, or at least we pretend that we do. All right? So, someone comes to my classroom while we're doing this kind of scavenger hunt that's in the back, and they say, how is this differentiated instruction? And I say, I'm differentiating the process based on what I know about kids' readiness and learning profile. I have kids in this class who need movement. I have kids in this class who need the answers so that they can not write down a lot of wrong things. I tell them, you don't have to differentiate all of these things all the time. You need to pick and choose which ones work for this class. Okay? And then the language of differentiation helps you express that to somebody else who had absolutely no idea why you thought that was a good thing to do. Okay? So, take a look at the chart. Talk about that a little bit. Did you see evidence of differentiation of any of these things in the course of the morning? All right? Take the time to do that. How's everybody doing with where we are in terms of talking about differentiating instruction? Everybody good? We're going to spend as much time as we need and no more, because we have other stuff to do. Okay, we're going to do some reading. And this lesson actually comes from a 4th grade classroom. And we're going to actually read, doing some nonfiction reading. We are going to read about whooping frames. And so before we do, I'm going to show you this little video, which doesn't seem to have any sound because, well, whatever, just watch. Just be an observer. Now, if I had sound, this would probably make more sense, but, no, it's okay. This is why teachers don't use technology. Because it was on alternating days. Oh, thank you. And then the remaining. Works for me. Listen, there's not enough hours in the day.
Right.
Okay? Another good reason.
Just to pique their interest.
Yeah. If I say whooping crane, some of the kids have no picture in their head of what a whooping crane looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, where they are. So often we ask kids to really talk about background knowledge, but they have none. They come with nothing to add to that. And so sometimes 2 minutes, we're not talking about showing a 2-hour movie. We're talking about just those visual learners now have a picture in their head. So as they begin reading, they will have something to rely on to do that. Okay? And so we are going to do some reading about cooking frames. But the first thing we're going to do is talk a little bit about vocabulary. So you have an envelope on your table. If there are 4 of you at a table, divide yourselves into 2 twos. Okay? So that each pair of each have an envelope. And I want you to open the envelope. There are 2 things in there. The first one, I want you to take out those little white folders. Okay, you can leave the little blue cards inside for a minute. So I want you to take the little white ones. This is some of the vocabulary that we're going to see as we read. So you can play with them. Open them up, close them up. Check out what we've got. Take a little time to check it out. Okay. So, talk to me about the foldables. What do you like about them? Okay, so, the foldable. All I did was make a table. I put the word, I don't draw, I just insert a picture. And I put a sentence that has the word in it. I put it in context for them. We're going to talk about the vocabulary a little more. But you just need to give them a little time to play with it. You can't pass these out and say, okay, now everybody hold up here. All right? You have to give them a little time to fold them and unfold them and take a look at them and see what words they know, which words are unfamiliar. So everybody gets a partner. They just have a chance to tinker with the words a little bit before we start. And then I've got the words up here. And so we're going to talk about what some of the words mean. But I'm also going to do a little call and response with the kids. Because there are kids who would use words if they could pronounce them. But they're so afraid of being wrong. So if I say conservationist, I have the kids say conservationist. I say, they say. We just do it back and forth a couple of times. I don't necessarily have to do it with all the words. This is not a typo, by the way. That's not supposed to be Arkansas. That's a racist. We'll find out what that is later. But we just make the pronunciations, and with your English language learners, that's doubly important. Because sometimes they may figure out what a word is because they're so afraid that they'll say it wrong that they don't open their mouths and put it out there. So we do a little of that back and forth before we move on. Yes? Everybody okay? Right. You can fold them up and stick them back in the envelope and take out the little blue cards. So now take away all the extra doodads here. And you just have words on these little cards. Right? Most of them are some of them are different colors. That's all right. Now, page up. We have seen 2 minutes worth of video. We have learned some new words. We've pronounced some of the words back and forth. Now I want you and your partners to look at the cards that you have on the table. Every one of those words is in the article that we're going to read. I've given you an index card. I want you and your partner to make a prediction. What do you imagine this article will be about? And you may want to use some of these words in your prediction. Okay? So, put your heads together, talk to your partner, look at the words. You can move them around. That's the whole point of having them on the cards, so you don't have to just let them sit here. You can see which words kind of go together for you. And then I want you, on this part, write a prediction. Okay, everybody got the idea of what's going on here? Okay, so, I told you before, I'm really pretty well obsessed with the kids' vocabulary. So we actually did 2 things with vocabulary before we even started reading, which to me is really crucial. For me, at least, you want to accommodate kids at a wide range of levels and have them all read the same thing, because we're going to read something that came right out of the 4th grade anthology. We'll read the same thing. We need to spend a little time building the vocabulary and background knowledge for those struggling readers before we start. This does not hurt your more able readers. It takes 10 minutes. You know, it's not like I've asked them to sit and read something below grade level for an hour and a half. And they have a chance, when we talk about making predictions, to really step up and do the higher level work while I'm building the vocabulary and the background, so that there's already a layer here. Do you feel that? Okay? So what we're going to do now is we're going to read. Okay? But we're going to read and we're going to do some highlights. So you should have two different color highlighters, right? And somewhere I put the reading material. So everybody needs a copy of the reading material. Don't just all like act like kids and start reading whatever. You can tuck the words away, you don't need them. Keep your prediction out. Keep your prediction. Tuck the words back in the envelope. Now, we can read this any way that makes sense to you. If I want to use it as a read aloud for the class, I can do that, right? If I want to have kids read independently, I can do that. If I want them to buddy read, I can do that. We have a lot of options in terms of how kids get through this reading. But here's what's going to happen. I'm going to read the first paragraph, and that's all. And then you're going to talk to your partner about which things did you predict correctly, which things surprised you. So just listen while I read, and then we talk about those two things. Here we go. This is called Saving the Whooping Cranes. In the United States today, you can see wild whooping cranes at their winter refuge on the Texas coast near the town of Aransas. Usually about 50 whooping cranes spend the winter there. In good years, there are a few more. In bad years, less. They are the only wild whooping cranes left on Earth. This is a very small number, and the whooping cranes are on the list of species that might become extinct. Now, before you talk to your partner, I want you to do two things. We're going to highlight on one sheet. You each got your own sheet to read, but we're going to highlight on one we're going to share. Take one of your highlighters, make a dash in that color, and right next to it, predict it correctly. Take your other color, make a little dash, and next to it write surprise. Now the truth is, you may not use both colors in every paragraph that you read. In some paragraphs, you will just find things that surprise you. In other paragraphs, you may just find things that you predicted correctly. But I want you and your partner to work together to see, is there anything in the first paragraph that you predicted correctly? If there is, highlight it in that color. Remember, you've got your prediction right. Okay, how are we doing? Everybody good? Okay, so here's what we could do. I could read each paragraph and have you do that, or I could have you read each paragraph with your partner and stop and read it. So you're all grown-ups, so you're not needing to read stand here and read you. So, as a team, read the second paragraph. Stop, highlight things that surprised you, things you predicted correctly. When you agree to that, read the next one. Okay, so you can work your way through as a team. Go. Okay, you have read enough. You got the idea how this works. Everybody okay? All right. So, talk to me about this. How does this help a struggling reader?
Fortunately, to actually pay attention as they're reading and slow down and look for.
I hope so. No, I mean, that is the point. Thank you. Okay? It gets them to stop, talk to their partner, which is key here, and then come to agreement about what I should highlight in this color, what I should highlight in that color. Ask the highlighting question.
How do you get them to stop and highlight?
How do you get them to stop and highlight everything? I know. I have a friend who used to do a lesson called a highlighter is not a crayon. But one, I think I need to model a lot. Okay, so I might put the first paragraph up here on the screen and highlight with them or for them. I might tell them no more than X number of words in any sentence can be highlighted, so you have to pick out the words that really tell me the answer. And I have been known to charge them money. So 10 cents a word and you only get $1 in this paragraph, and then you have to stop highlighting. You know, but you really have to keep after it. I just gave you a couple ideas, but it's not easy. They highlight entire paragraphs. Anybody else? What did you notice about the look of this? It's big. It's big. Okay? This was a single page in paper and in big font. Why would I do that? It's certainly less intimidating.
And space to work.
There's space to work. You can write in the margins, you can highlight, you can write in the bottom of the page. I can have you go back and circle words. There's a lot of things in the textbook that are not accessible to kids. And not only your struggling readers, but your better readers need to be able to annotate. They need to be able to draw pictures in the margins. They need to be able to circle things. You know, everybody needs to have the ability to do that. And so sometimes we need to find bigger versions of these things. You know, so scan them in and change the type font and print it out. And there's also something about the big paper that says this is not really so scary. I don't know why that works. It's the same amount of reading, but it really does work here. Okay? We call this read, highlight, and share. You can call it anything you like. I probably need to sit here and into this strategy. But teachers have been doing this and have found really good success in class with kids. If you have younger kids, you are probably doing more highlighting as the whole class. You know, I read aloud and we pick a word or two and we highlight it and go back. We were talking before, I said, what did you predict correctly, what surprised you? But it could be what's a fact and what's an opinion. It could be a main idea and a detail. You know, you can have two colors and have them be any two things that you want. So it's really good for science and social studies kind of content area reading. It works really well for that. Okay? Yes or no? Okay? So I put the follow-up task on your table. Looks like this. It says at the top, draft fund. So we saw two different possible assessment strategies so far today. We saw the perfect 10 and we saw tic-tac-toe. I want to give you a third one. This is called raft. Raft is a way to create writing prompts for kids. And raft is exactly what it stands for. Role, audience, format, and topic. These go in a straight line. So your first choice as a student, you could be a whooping crane. You could write to yourself a journal entry, my life at the Aransas Refuge. That's one possibility. The second one, I could be a student to other students, a postcard, my visit to the Aransas Refuge. In other words, I have created 4 different options for you as a student. Take a look at them. See what the appeal might be. Are there some things that would appeal to some students rather than others? And that's just fine with me, as long as they write. Okay? So, I might, for example, have a postcard template that I give kids if they're going to do a postcard. You know, you can give any support pieces that you think kids might need. I've been using raft a lot. It is my favorite way to create writing prompts for kids because often, you know, particularly on various assessments, the writing prompt goes on for half an hour. And when they get to the end, they don't know what they're supposed to do. This is pretty straightforward. Role. Who am I as the writer? Audience. Who is this writing for? Who's actually going to read this? Okay? Format. What kind of writing am I doing? And if you've been working on writing postcards, you can make all 4 of them postcards. That's fine. You don't have to give them all these other choices if that doesn't work for you. And what's the topic that I'm writing about? Okay? The kids, again, like this because there are choices here. Right? It's really hard for a lot of kids to step into the role of. And so raft really makes that pretty clear to them. So I have a gift for you. All right? This comes from the Bayonne School District. I spent the better part of a year there working with a group of K-8 teachers, and we did raft a lot. Because every month we met, and they went back and they did raft in their classrooms. And in a moment of absolute insight, one of the teachers said to me, we should stop reinventing the wheel every month. We should just come up with a list of possible formats for raft and stop trying to think this up. So what I've given you is what they created in terms of possible formats for raft. Some of them are short, some of them are long, some of them require more writing than others. And remember, this was a K-8 group, so some of them are appropriate at different levels. So take a minute, look through. If there are 1 or 2 explain to you what they are. I will be happy to. There is not much tech on here. If you're going to do this, you will want to add more tech. We probably did this 15 years ago before everybody had an iPad in the classroom. So just kind of browse a little bit. We're going to play Goose Goose Trade tomorrow. Okay, so you will learn the Goose Goose Trade, I promise you. Anybody else? A bow tie. Bow tie is an alternative to a Venn diagram. You know how when kids draw a Venn diagram? They always do this, so there's absolutely no room to write in the middle. And kids who struggle, honest to goodness, never understand the overlap. Okay? A bow tie looks like this. So it's just like a Venn diagram, but it's a different format. And then if you want to teach the kids what a Venn diagram is, you can always draw that around the bow tie, but it's just visually a little less confusing to them. Okay? Anything else?
Clothesline?
Clothesline. We may actually do this clothesline. The clothesline has a clothesline and t-shirts. Each t-shirt represents a main idea. Each clothespin represents some kind of a detail. Right? So you can do it on a piece of paper, or you can put a big clothesline up in your, like you can do it in various formats, but it's really good for main idea and supporting details, although you can use it for a lot of things, but that's the thing I see most teachers using it for. Right? So you can just make a little template for them that had like 3 t-shirts and room to write. Okay? Anything else? Yeah, shopping list. So if you're Cinderella and you have to go shopping before you go to the ball, what would be the things on your list? Pick a character, pick a person from history. What would be on Columbus's shopping list before he gets on the Nina, the Santa Maria? Like just pick someone or something and have them create shopping lists. Okay? So those are for you. Tuck those away. All right, so here's what we need to do. Yes?
What's the will?
A will. So if, I'm stuck on Cinderella now. So if the king in that story had to do a will, what was his stuff, what was he going to leave it to? Yes, it's a will. So regular old will. Okay? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to clean up a little bit. Then I'm going to tell you a story. And then we're going to call it a morning. All right? Because we've gotten a lot done today. Thank you all for that. And I feel like we're off to a really good start here. So I will need back from you. We just leave the highlighters on the table because we'll clean up once really seriously over it. Right? But I will need the envelopes back from the looking frame. So if you just kind of pile the envelopes up here, I will take care of the rest of the cleanup after the meeting. Okay, so I want to tell you a story about intelligence. Right? And about what it means to be smart. When I worked at the high schools, I went to high school in Northern Thompson for a very long time, and we had something in our building called the Fundamental Skills Class. And that was basically for kids at the high school level whose IQs were in the 60s. So kids who were not out taking Algebra 2. These were kids who, some of them had Down syndrome, but they all had really significant kinds of intellectual issues around learning, right? Quite a diverse group, by the way, in terms of how they learned and who they were, but they have that in common. And oftentimes, we keep those kids until they were 21, so they come to high school at 15, and we would have them for quite a long time. And every 3 years, kids needed to be reevaluated. So one day I had a student from that class in my office for her Child 17 reevaluation. And I will tell you her name because I see her fairly regularly, and she knows I tell people this story. Right? So I'm Melissa in my office, and I say to her, as I often say to kids, just a way to break the ice and get started. Melissa, I want you to write for me your name, your address, and your phone number. Gave her paper and pencil. And she leaned over, she picked her pocketbook up. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not missing your mom. That's all right, I have a Medicare card. I have an excuse for everything. So, we asked those kids to participate in some kind of after-school activities because they didn't really have access to their general ed population. One day Melissa comes down to my office and she says she wants to stay after school for fun. Now, Tom's River has the largest privately owned bus fleet in the state of New Jersey. not good to call the bus garage and tell them you want special transportation with 1 day's notice, because all they do is yell, all right? So I called Melissa's mother, and we decided it would be good for her to learn to take the late bus home. Because if you're going to get a job in Toms River, you're going to need to somehow navigate some transportation, because it was not going to have a driver's license. So her mother and I decided she would take the late bus home. But Melissa has significant speech issues. I understood her, and her classroom teachers understood her, but I had no faith that a new bus driver, if she was lost and late and upset, would understand one word she said. So we went out to the big map of the bus thing, and I wrote for her the number of the bus, and I wrote her name, her address, and her telephone number in my very neatest teacher printing. And I gave it to her with strict instructions that should she have any problem, she would give this card to the bus driver. Nobody called me at home that night hysterical, and she was in school the next day, so all was well. She learned to navigate the late bus. 2 years later, I have her in my office. See, now I've caught up to my own story. I've had her in my office for child student reevaluation. And I said to her, Melissa, I want you to write down for me your name, your address, and your telephone number. And she leaned over, popped the ball off the floor. She took out a ball, and there, dog-eared and dirty, in my very neatest teacher printing, was the card I had given her 2 years earlier. She sat down on the desk. She proceeded to copy for me her name, her address, and her telephone number. Now, I'd forgotten I'd given this stupid card. I mean, really, I got a lot of things on my plate. Her index card was not one of the things I thought about every day. When our psychologist saw her, her IQ was no higher than it had ever been. This was a young woman with significant kinds of special education needs. But if that's not evidence of intelligent behavior, you don't know what is. That she had a problem to solve, she knew she had a tool she could use to solve it, and ask anybody's permission, she just fixed it. And I can tell you that story because I was her case manager for 6 years, all right? I got to see a whole arc of her going from a 15-year-old to a 21-year-old, to becoming a young woman. You don't always have that advantage. You have kids for a year, and they move on. And sometimes 3 years later, 4 years later, somebody asks them to do something, or they ask them a question, and something you said to them, or something you did for them, comes right back. Like, you don't always get to see that. You don't always know the power that you have with kids. And I think that's unfortunate, because this job is hard enough. Some of that positive feedback might be really nice sometimes, okay? Now, I told you that I see Melissa regularly, because Melissa is the best grocery packer at shopping. Unlike the teenagers who lean things into your bag in any order whatsoever, she puts the heavy things in the bottom and the light things on the top. If you bring your own bags, that's what you get. And then she puts them in your cart and she says, have a nice day. And should she see what aisle I'm in, I never pack my own groceries because she is my own personal shopper grocery packer. And she knows what she's doing, because one day I was in a really big hurry because I speed shop, all right? And so I picked up the bananas and I just put them in a bag that was already in the basket. Now, I've known Melissa for a very long time. She told me the last time I saw her that she's 40 now. So I've known her for a long time. She's not going to say, Mrs. Fote, you cannot put those eggs in this bag. So she waited until I turned my back. She picked the eggs up off the bag and she put out the bag and she put them in someplace more appropriate. But we forget that we've got kids at all kinds of levels who have something to contribute, who have a real place in the world that we live in. And just because they don't do well on certain tests, and they can't pass the high school proficiency test in algebra, does not mean that they don't have value. And I think it's really important once in a while to just remind ourselves of that. That we talk about instruction here, but you do way more than that with kids. So I always like to talk about Melissa because she is one of my priorities. All right? So I'm going to give you a ring that has some sentence starters on it. I'm going to ask you to pick one based on what we did today. And you're going to finish it for us. Some of you get the fancy ones, and some of you get the handwritten ones. I'm sorry. I'm just running. You're going to finish one, and then we're going to I lost the